Okay, good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here with University of Florida Extension in Hernando County. And today, I know that normally I would have my regular guest host, Lily Browning, on here helping me out, but Lily wasn't able to make it today. She had another meeting that she had to go to, but I do have a special guest here today. We have Hannah Brinkley, and Hannah's with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and she is the current director at the Chinsegut Conservation Center here in Hernando County. So, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with it. Maybe others, especially if you don't live in Hernando County, might not be as familiar. Because, Hannah, we have regular people who tune in here that live in the Panhandle, they live in Broward County, they live in Pinellas, they live in, let me think, where else? Southern Osceola, Polk County. So we get people from all over the place here.
Wow.
So they might not have necessarily ever come to Chinsegut before.
So, good morning, everybody. Lisa, I'm with Chinsegut Conservation Center. We're an environmental education facility run by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, or FWC. We'll go with that.
FWC for short. Yeah, we love our acronyms here with extension and government. So
I know enough with the acronyms. It's we've been here since 1985. It's kind of transformed through the years, but what we offer now are mostly outdoor programming. We've, like everybody, we've had to kind of revise what we do for the pandemic, and so we offer a lot of hikes. This fall, we're doing some homeschool programs, and a big thing that folks from all over might want to enjoy or see as a good resources are archery classes in that program. So those are on Facebook and on our website, myfwc.com/Chinsegut. So that's a big draw for folks, is the archery programs and our hikes. And just, we're nestled within the Chinsegut Wildlife Environmental Area, and there's lots of miles to hike just around the center and things. Even if you're not coming to see us at the Conservation Center, doing a hike in the Wildlife Environmental Area, it'd be a lot of fun for folks.
Yes, you guys have some beautiful property up there. Some very, very nice hiking trails. They have something that they call Mays Prairie, and I've always thought of it as a lake, because that's what it looks like to me, is a lake.
It seasonally is. It's a seasonal wetland, and I neglected to mention that. It's one of the really just the pretty gems of our area. And even if it's dry, it's still a place where animals are drawn to, even in the dry season. And when it's wet, oh my goodness, the chorus of frogs right now, the wading birds, there are alligators moving through. It's a really neat place to go and check out, even if you're not doing one of our programs.
I can imagine at night the frogs and toads and all the other animals, because we've just recently started camping, just got an RV not too long ago. And when you're out there in the woods, and I mean, this time of year where you get a lot of rain and a lot of puddles out in the woods, oh my gosh, it's loud. You can hardly sleep at night. It's so loud.
It is. It's deafening. And so one of the fun things we do are night hikes or like evening hikes, just depending on the time of year. We don't want to keep people out too late, but in those, usually we get to see our bats leave our bat houses. We have a few bat houses, which is super fun. And then as part of that, we usually walk down to our boardwalk, and we can hear that chorus, and we can see deer or whatever along the way might be rustling around during that crepuscular time of day between when the sun goes down. So be on the lookout for those on our schedule too, if you're interested in seeing the bats or hearing that chorus during the evening.
Yeah, I went out there once before for when the bats come out, and every evening at that magical time, you're kind of standing there and you're waiting, and all of a sudden, boom, they all just start pouring out of the bat houses you have up there. It's pretty amazing to see them all at once, and they all fly off to eat mosquitoes and moths and things all night long.
It's always been amazing to me. I think before I knew anything about bat houses and that type of thing, if you see them, or if you see one anywhere, the ones you can buy and put in your home, just a small one can hold several hundred. I don't think I don't think people have that visual, or I don't think people realize that it's one little box can hold so many, and we have 5 boxes. So we've tried, we haven't done any formal studies, but at least in a couple of years, but just anecdotally, we see hundreds come out every time we're out there and all times of the year. And it is a lot of fun. And we know they're eating our bugs and they're helping us out that way.
Yes, bats are your friend. I know a lot of people are afraid of bats, probably from watching too many movies and vampires and who knows what else on TV. But bats out in the environment are your friend. They don't all carry rabies. They're not all going to try to bite you or carry you off. Having a bat house, if you live in a small residential yard, well, you might not have enough room for it. But we have a lot of people in the county that live out in the country. They have a bit of property, so it's a great thing to add for wildlife out there.
That's right. I live in a neighborhood where a lot of folks have half-acre lots, and so that might be a little bigger than average. And several of my neighbors have them, and I know of at least one that's successfully got them in the box. So it's definitely doable.
Well, good morning, Brenda. Brenda commented that she went to one of the bat walks at Chinsegan. It was awesome to see them fly. So Brenda's one of our master gardeners and regular viewers here.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. Glad you could come out.
If anybody else has any questions, any lawn and garden questions, turf grass, hibiscus, whatever it may be, go ahead and feel free to put in the comments, and I will try to answer it. I'm not going to give too many of the lawn and garden ones to Hannah, but if you have any animal questions, I am not the animal expert, guys. So don't ask me about gopher tortoises or don't ever ask me to identify a bird. I know blue jays and I know cardinals, and that is it. The really big cranes, I know them. So I know 3 birds, and that's about it.
Help with that if we have any questions.
Hey, we got a question for you though, Hannah. Can you visit Chinsegan without an appointment?
You can. So in the conservation center itself is still closed to maintenance, but we are around. The access point for our trailhead off of Lake Lindsay Road is open all week whenever we're here working. So we're usually here from 8 to 4:30, and we are definitely having that gate open on Fridays and Saturdays between 8 to 2. So if you need to come out on a weekend, Saturdays are your best bet from 8 to 2. But there are trailheads down at the corner of Snow Memorial Highway and 41, where it's just hike-in only or walk-in only that you can access the Conservation Center tract. But there's also trailheads for Big Pine, which is beautiful summer wildflowers right now over off of Old Crystal River Road is that walk-in entrance.
And it's a little hot this time of year, so bring water, bring a hat.
Mm-hmm. It is. Come early, but yeah, bring all those things, because unless there's cloud cover, it can get a little bit much. But there are some just fantastic wildflowers right now, so I recommend checking it out.
All right, Brenda kind of has a question for you here. Brenda has a bat house out in the country, but they've never seen anything in it.
So sometimes it can take a while. I'm not a bat expert, but I've been told just anecdotally that sometimes it takes a few years even for bats to discover it. But if it's suitable for them, they will find it and they will use it. Generally, they like bat houses that are that give them enough clearance underneath the bat house, so that's something to consider. They like at least 15 feet is what I've told is a good number to put it that far up, and clear as far as no trees or obstructions in that potential flight path. And so sometimes folks install poles, sometimes folks put them on their house or even put them on like a pine tree where there might not be any lower limbs obstructing that. But that's kind of my best guess, is that maybe they haven't found it yet, or consider if there are any obstructions, consider that might be preventing them from preferring that instead of some natural roost.
Yeah, I've always heard that it could take time. It could take a few years until they find it. But once they do find it and move in, then they do well.
And even seasonally, sometimes they'll prefer a certain roost for a certain season, and say it's one that gets a lot of sun and it might be really hot during the summer, then they might prefer somewhere else, but then they might come back. So it's if they do arrive and then they're gone, it's not because, oh, don't think something's gone wrong. They may be back.
So what other kind of animals could people see up there hiking through the woods or going around Mays Prairie, or the lake, as I call it?
So we have two really cool places to observe things on the Prairie Watch. There's 4 spots that kind of come through the woods, but there's the Cypress Boardwalk, which is the closest, and it's a little shallower on that end, on the north side of the prairie. And folks are seeing your air potato, your pickerel weed. Those are really pretty submerged aquatic vegetation. They're aquatic flowering plants. So the air potato is this brilliant, it's white, the little orange center, and then the pickerel weed are these really pretty purple flowers. They look like iris. Well, we have blue flag iris too, but they're that color. But you have all of your great blue herons. We have a family of sandhill cranes that has their young has already hatched, and so they don't spend as much time out there, but they were nesting in the middle of the prairie. That usually happens about May. And then a little further along down our trails, we have a viewing blind, which is really cool because that ends a little deeper, and that attracts diving ducks and dabblers. So we have a lot of moorhens, and we have the occasional, the black-bellied whistling ducks, and occasional wood ducks, and just some cool
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
haven't been to that since you built that. The last time I saw it, they were going to build it.
Oh, really?
So I went to where it was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't. Is that all done? All fixed up?
It is.
Oh, okay.
It is. Mm-hmm. And no matter the water level, you can get to it because we have a boardwalk, leading that farther up into the uplands, and so it does get wet underneath it, and so it's kind of neat during the rainy season. Not only are you looking out at the birds, but you've got to look down and around because you might have, I don't know, frogs or whatever to look at down below you too. So it's kind of fun. We're certainly in that season now. It is wet enough that the water is just up to that viewing blind, and we will probably get more rain, and it'll probably be even more full. And as the prairie fills up, the water starts to move across the landscape. And so there's a nearby little swamp area, and at some point it'll get high enough that it'll start traveling between the two. And so you'll have this neat sheet flow, and you'll have crayfish and just little critters going between the two bodies of water. And so it's just a really cool opportunity to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I think years ago it used to go completely dry on a pretty regular basis, but I think it's had water in it for a number of years now. I haven't seen it totally dried up or almost totally dried up for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it. It's dependent on whether it does have the potential to dry out. But if we have a wet winter, it'll stay inundated. So we have fewer fish than people might expect. And at Chinsegut, there is no fishing or hunting. Even for fishing, even catch and release isn't allowed. So it's a very just for those limited uses is like hiking and wildlife viewing. But that also affords folks, a different kind of opportunity. If you want to go where that's not going to be in the mix, then you're safe to view without that going on. So some folks enjoy that aspect.
Yeah. So what did you say? It was a duck potato?
Did I say air potato?
I think so, yeah. And you have air potato up there, but it doesn't flower.
I am so sorry. Forgive me. For all of your followers who know better, you would know that I was incorrect. That's
See, they're sharp.
That's why
it's listening closely.
And that's why I'm sure y'all know it's bad to use common names because you get those things mixed up. And I got the two mixed up. So duck potato is the correct common name for that flowering plant that you'd see out in the prairie with the white. Very true. Thank you.
See, they do listen very closely here.
It's misleading because we can't see the audience either. So
Exactly. But the funny thing is, like I said earlier, we've been doing this for, it's probably been about a year and a half at this point.
Mhm.
And there's a number of people who log on and listen either every week or almost every week. We have a lot of real regulars here, and they're literally from all over the country. We have somebody who listens in from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we have nationwide reach here.
I wonder if those were or are seasonal residents, or 'cause I know I used to live down in Fort Myers, and I still like to listen to my radio station from down there. So I wonder if it's a taste of home situation,
Some
or
are,
maybe, you know.
some are, but not necessarily all of them. And like I said, we have people from the Panhandle all the way down to Broward County, and I think Southern Pinellas on the west side of the state.
Oh, that's
So
really neat.
I'll get questions from plants, and people will ask about, a plant, and I have to ask back, well, where in the state do you live? Because that's going to kind of determine
Mhm,
what the problem could be and what the solution might be.
mhm.
So if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and post them, and we'll do our best to figure them out here. Everybody's being very quiet today. So let me go ahead and, for anybody who's interested, if you go to this webpage, and Hannah, this is for you also, did you know that you can go to Hernando Extension, all one word, .com, and that's a full listing of all of our classes and activities coming up, and it's fed automatically from our Facebook events page. So if we plan it, we put it on Facebook, it shows up on here so that anybody can go to that and just kind of follow and keep on top of all the different classes that we have coming up. Because I do classes on lawn and garden topics. Lily Browning, our Florida Friendly Landscape agent, does that on Florida Friendly Landscaping. Jim Davis, our County Extension Director, does classes on wildlife. He's been up there with his camera before, right? Getting photographs.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, he's gotten several, and has graciously shared them with us. So we've been able to use some for our events and things.
Yeah, he really enjoys wildlife photography, and he puts a lot of really good shots on our Facebook page.
That's one thing that folks really enjoy coming out here to do is nature photography. We have a new education specialist that's her specialty, and so she's hosted about once a month, has hosted something nature photography related, and it's just been a way to get folks who maybe new, don't really understand all the settings on their DSLR camera. Has been able to get those folks.
I know.
And I know. Point click. No, for the best. But she's been really our resident expert in helping folks not only understand their cameras, but also point out some cool spots, some cool things that are happening. It's really neat. And if you're local, you should come out at different times of the year because we have different things going on that might be neat or interesting. And during the spring, we have all the birds nesting, and like we had a pileated woodpecker nest this spring that if you, if you're around and we could tell you about it, it was just this really cool snag right off the trail, and so just perfect picture opportunity. And we had a red-shouldered hawk nest that's really neat, and we have tons of red-headed woodpeckers, which a lot of folks don't get to see every day. And those are year-round residents. I was just hearing one outside the center this morning. So if that's on your bucket list, come out to see red-headed woodpeckers.
Okay, we got a bunch of questions now.
Oh, good.
Let me go ahead and share this one with you. Sharon asks, I have a 6-year-old nephew. Do you have programs for this age group?
We do. So we, going into the fall, we're going to be pretty quiet in August. We're using that time to recoup, and it's hot outside. No one wants to be outside right now. Yeah. So check out our schedule. We don't put everything on Facebook because some of our class sizes are limited, and we don't want to things up that are already full. But our website, and we'll put that up here somewhere
I already put a
Bill?
link to it. I
Okay,
put that
okay,
in the
good.
comments early on.
Mhm.
So if you scroll up on the
Mhm.
comments,
Mhm.
you should be able to find the link up there that I already put up.
Okay, great. So about once a month we'll have something for that age group, and we have things during the week and on the weekends, and it's just based on our schedule because it's just a few part-time folks and me. How often we do that, but we try to diversify those offerings. Sometimes it's going to be during the week, sometimes it's on the weekend. Um, but we do. I know we were just talking about that in our yearly planning. We were talking about doing things that are even for a younger audience. That's just nature play because at that age, structure is not.
Structure is boring.
It's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah, it's way more fun to just kind of have some kind of. I mean, I'm going to call it, but some kind of organized play or something that gets across our message, which is all about conservation and wildlife. So,
Just running
so
through the woods
yes,
is fun.
I know. Or a very short hike. Like recently, we had an animal tracks class, and I call it a class, but we just go over what animal makes what kind of track and scat. We talk about poop, which is for that age group is just the most
Oh
interesting
yeah,
thing.
little boys love that. So poop
Yeah,
and
and
dead
just did a
stuff.
very. That's right. And then we just did a little short walk and an opportunity to find things. And then Dr. Lester helped us with a really fun program called Insect Inspection, and we just did a brief little talk about insects. And then we had our nets and our cages, and we just went around and collected and identified, and just had a lot of fun one morning. So we do try to offer something for that age group as often as we can.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and the center is a really great place to be able to do that. You guys have great diversity of insects and plants and flowers and trees and everything else.
Mm. And so one thing I would pose to you, if you're interested in that, is to let us know. Um, is there a particular topic? Is there a particular need that you see? 'Cause we're open to that as well.
Okay, I got a question here from Antonio, and they ask, "Good morning. I just bought land in Gilchrist County, and Gilchrist County is right to the west, I think, of Alachua County. They're kind
Mm.
of side by side, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong here. What type of avocados would you recommend to grow?" You're a little far north to grow avocados reliably and actually have them produce. There are Mexican varieties of avocados that take cold weather better. The problem is, after you get too far north, if you plant avocados, every year they're going to freeze back some. Then you have to trim them and clean them up. And during the next summer, they grow and they recover and they look good, but they're always getting knocked back. And they tend to never flower or get fruit, or usually at best, they'll get a couple fruit if we have really warm winters for a couple years in a row. So look at the Mexican varieties of avocados, and remember, even if you can grow an avocado tree, actually getting a crop off of it or a harvest is going to be difficult that far north. Even here in Hernando County, we're kind of very, very borderline.
Mm-hmm.
For our listeners who live down in South Florida, uh, Southern Pinellas, Broward County, they grow like weeds down there because it never gets cold. They never freeze. So they
Mm-hmm.
just grow year round and oh my gosh, they get tons of avocados. I wish I could in Hernando
Mm-hmm.
County. If I could, I'd have a bunch of them planted.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous
I
of the folks
know.
that live down there because I used to live in Fort Myers and I could grow anything, and I can't here.
Fort Myers, Pine Island area, they grow
Mm-hmm.
starfruit commercially. They grow
Mm.
lychees commercially. I know they grow mangoes commercially. I would love to be able to reliably grow mangoes. Yeah, I'm jealous of them. And we have family in Miami, between Miami and Homestead. And I love going down there and going to the huge farmers market in Homestead on the weekends. All the
Mm.
just locally grown fresh tropical fruit and all the stuff I can't grow in my yard here. So
Oh no. So is the answer to that question. There are varieties that would survive, but you might not get huge crop.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are some Mexican varieties that you could look at because they say they take colder temperatures. Now, of course, if you plant it in an unprotected area in your yard in Gilchrist County and we have a cold winter and the temperatures get down to the teens or below, any variety of avocado you have could freeze and die, especially if it's young. If you have a protected spot in your yard, up next to the house, next to a pool, a screen porch, an area under some trees where it doesn't get quite as cold, that's going to be a better spot to try an avocado. But Gilchrist County is pretty far north. You're really, really pushing your avocado success possibilities.
Can avocados take cold stress? Like, can they be knocked back but not killed?
Yes, a lot of times they'll just be damaged and they'll lose some leaves, they'll lose some branches in the spring. Normally March, you'd have to go out there and prune off all the frozen dead branches and leaves, whatever's left, and they'll survive and they'll grow back. But they very, very rarely get through. Right near you, the Chinsegan Manor House, the historic house near the Conservation Center, they had a few avocado trees over there. And they were big trees and they looked good, but they almost never had avocados because the winter damage they got stopped them from flowering early in the spring. And if no flowers, no avocados. Another one of our regular viewers here, Warren, or Buddy Warren lives up in Tallahassee. So I told you we had some regular viewers here from up in the Panhandle. So obviously, they would not want to try growing avocados up in the Panhandle. That's pushing it even further, even though you may be able to have the trees survive. And they do make attractive trees, but obviously the reason why you're trying to grow avocados is for the avocados. Roberta asks, do you have any info on edible wild plants in Florida?
So I am not an expert on that. and nor do I purport to be. It's something I'm trying to learn more about. That's a question we get a lot here at the center. But at the same time, I'm so hesitant because the last thing I want to do is to say, oh, this is good to eat. And then that gets, someone eats something they're similar, but not what I said. You know what I mean? And then they get sick. So I know there are some good books out there. And I would recommend getting, doing your research and get a book, and start that way. And there's so few classes that I know of that talk about something like that. Does Lily ever offer anything like that, or do y'all ever offer anything like that?
We have in the past, and everybody's interested in what kind of things that grow in the woods you can eat. Even though I personally wouldn't eat most of them, because just because it's edible doesn't mean that you want to eat it.
Well, a few things that I know that you can eat that are pretty harmless are Smilax, Smilax is a genus of vine, and so it's any of them, but they're not all super tasty. But it's the new shoots, the very and the new growth from those is really tender, and folks just either eat those right off the vine or cut them off and collect them and maybe put them in a salad or something like that. I have been brave enough to taste those, and they're pretty good. But like you said, it's not something you could survive on. Well, if you had to, but it's not something you just want to eat all day, every day.
Well, if you ever want to go on one of those Survivor shows, you're going to have to know all that kind of stuff. When they drop you off in Guyana or middle of Africa or something, I'll know how helpful it's going to be. But yeah, that's a very popular topic, a popular class. Roberta, if you look online, University of Florida has a lot of information on that. So if you go to and just Google University of Florida or UF, edible wild plants, you'll find a lot of fact sheets on that. One thing you really want to avoid, and I will not make any recommendations for, is eating mushrooms. Now,
Mhm.
up north, you may have gone out in the woods and harvested mushrooms, and that's great because there's far fewer species of mushrooms up north. Here in Florida, we have a huge number of species, and the edible ones, almost all of them have a poisonous one
Mm.
that looks very, very, very similar. And
Oh no.
unless you're and even the mushroom experts here in Florida won't go out in the woods and pick them and eat them. So if they won't do it, I'm not going to do it. And if we won't do it, you shouldn't do it either. So we always caution people to be very, very careful with mushrooms in Florida. If you go to Minnesota in the summer, they have, only a couple different mushrooms, I guess, to pick from, and pretty easy to tell if it's, edible or poisonous. Not here in Florida. So if you have people asking you on a hike up there, oh, can I pick this mushroom and eat it? Tell them no, you don't want to do that.
But yeah, Smilex is a good one to start with. Yeah, almost everybody, if you have some natural component to your yard, almost everybody's got it growing up on their fence.
And there are a lot of weeds that are edible. They may not be very tasty. You may try them once, and I'm not going to try that one again.
Like dandelion leaves.
Yeah.
Bitter, but you could eat them.
And Biden's alba or beggar tick, Spanish needle, has a lot of different common names. The new growth on it is edible. I don't know what it tastes like. I've never tried it, so.
It's peppery.
Oh, okay.
It's actually kind of peppery.
Yeah, so if you forget to go to the grocery store and you want to make a salad,
right,
you could go out in the yard and get most of the way there. Got a question here, I guess, for me about the best peach variety for South Florida. I'm not sure off the top of my head. If you give me a second here, or I think we have Teresa listening, if she could look it up. University of Florida has a fact sheet on all the different varieties of peaches that grow here in Florida and where in Florida you should grow them. They're all based on how many chilling hours you get. So if you live in South Florida, you get very few chilling hours. Buddy up there in Tallahassee gets a lot of chilling hours. So you need to match your variety with how cold and how much cold you get per winter. Peaches can be grown down to a certain point south of here, but that's kind of it. You can't, I don't think there's any varieties of peaches that can be grown in, let's say, Miami or Homestead or really far south, because peaches do need at least a little bit of cold weather every winter. And you don't get any cold weather down there in Miami and Homestead. That's why tropical fruit grows well there, but not temperate fruit, things like peaches. So here we go. Sid, another one of our regular viewers here. And I'll go ahead and I'll try to copy this. Maybe if Teresa is still watching, if she could copy this. There is a Peterson Field Guide, Edible Wild Plants of Eastern and Central North America. So that would be a really good place for you to start. If you just look that up online, I'm sure Amazon sells it. You can order it from them. Maybe, Hannah, are you grabbing for your copy of that book?
I don't have that copy, but I was just looking through my books the other day, and there's Common Florida Mushrooms. I don't know if you can see that one.
And then the author of that, go back to that book. The author, James Kimbrough, is Dr. Kimbrough, who is now retired from University of Florida. I took his mycology class, which is study of fungi, mushrooms, and all the other ones. His last year teaching there, I think he retired the next year. And he was great. Oh my gosh. He had research papers from the early 1960s that he had published and was referencing. And Dr. Kimbrough, he was the state expert for identifying mushrooms. So if your child ate a mushroom or your dog and you had to know what it was, the pictures would go to him, and he was in charge of identifying
Oh,
them.
wow.
He obviously had years of experience. He told us in class he wouldn't go out in the woods and pick and eat mushrooms here in Florida.
Huh.
So if Dr. Kimbrough won't do it, I'm not going to do it. Because he knew he could be 99.9% sure that this mushroom was safe to eat, but not 100%, and he wasn't going to risk it. He was a great guy. Oh my gosh, he had a lifetime of knowledge and experience. And the research he had done, he'd been the preeminent mushroom expert in Florida for decades, for many, many years.
Yeah, and there's so much that we're just starting to learn about mushrooms, and just what they can teach us and how they help decay living organisms. I was just learning that there's some way that they're using mushrooms to help clean up oil spills. It's just fascinating. So we should inspire the next generation to research and learn as much as we can about them, even if we can't eat them all.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, after Dr. Kimbrough retired, Dr. Matt Smith took over, and he is in charge of the teaching mycology, which is the study of fungi, doing research on mushrooms, identifying them in case somebody's, pet or child ate them. People have sent me pictures of mushrooms before, and I forward them to him, and he always identifies them very, very quickly. Great guy. But he's very young, and he's, very early in his career, so he kind of stepped in to take over. Mycology is one of those things that not many people think about getting into. I mean, how many people do you know? It's like, so what do you want to study in college? I want to study mycology. What the heck is that? Not many people think about it as a possible career, but it's great because not many people go into it. And people's dogs are always going to be eating mushrooms, so there's always a need for somebody with idea.
Job security.
Okay, the peach question from Ragu is in Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie is probably the edge of peach world, if that makes any sense. So let me find, and here is the guide. This is Florida peach and nectarine varieties. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat here, and most of you, depending on where you're watching us from, should be able to see it. If you can't and you're interested, if you Google University of Florida peach and nectarine varieties, there's a very, very good fact sheet on that. And it says that the most important thing that determines what you grow where you live is how much cold weather you get per winter. And goes through, this is there's a whole bunch of different varieties here, and it tells you how many chill units it needs to get on average per winter, and what part of Florida it's going to grow the best in. So this gives you all the possibilities, and then you need to pick from them. Because if I live in Hernando County, if I try growing a variety of peach that grows, let's say, in Georgia or South Carolina, it may grow well here, and the tree may look very pretty, but it's never going to get enough cold weather in the winter to flower in the spring. So I'm going to have a peach tree that I'm never going to get any peaches off of. And that is going to really frustrate me. I'm going to be really unhappy. And one day I'm going to chop it down and use the wood in my smoker grill. So start with getting the right variety for where you live, and that gives you the best chance of actually getting peaches or nectarines or whatever you're trying to grow off of.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So by cold weather, like saying they require cold weather, do you mean that it needs to freeze at least a couple times a year? Or does it just need to get a certain temperature and not necessarily have to get freezing?
No, and that is a very, very good question. Cold weather, their chill units, let me double check exactly what makes a chill unit. Um, okay, they say slightly different, but during the winter, every hour where the temperature is below 45 degrees. So we're not talking freezing, we're talking
Mm.
cold. So below 45 degrees is a chill hour. So if you live here in Hernando County and it's in the winter, we have a cold night. If you can go out there and figure out how many hours, let's say 4 hours in the middle of the night, the temperature was below 45, you get 4 chill hours. And you can, there are University of Florida and other weather stations around Florida. And if you go to their websites, they have all the data. If you want to know what the high temperature was, low temperature, rainfall for any given date, they have all of it. They keep track of the chill units. I think the closest one to us is in Dade City, which is pretty close, not exact, but you can go on there during the winter and see how many chill units we've gotten in for that winter. And you can look at your blueberries, peaches, things like that that need chill units and figure and get a ballpark idea of will you have really good flowering that spring or not so much. Generally, more chill units are better. Less chill, if you don't get enough chill units, that's a problem. Your plants either are going to flower but not very well, or they won't flower at all.
Can I ask a question?
Man, you go right ahead.
Okay. So this is not what I had in mind when I came on here today.
I think we have a new regular viewer here now.
I know. If I have to go back and watch the shows a lot of times afterwards, but I have been tuning in. So I've driven down one street in my county, and there are mature, what look like banana plants. And so I got the wild hair to do that in my backyard and have not been successful. And I was wondering if you had any tips for what would make us successful. And honestly, I've never seen actual bananas. I mean, I'm just driving by, so I'm not looking up close. But they look to be mature and live banana trees, and mine dies every year.
Well, here, if it's in a spot where it gets really cold and it's not really protected, they get a lot of freeze damage. If you go outside and cover them on a cold night, you plant them in a spot where they're tucked up really close to your pool, which will keep them warm. By your front door, if you have, or be like kind of between, one wall and your garage, you know how it makes a little courtyard. They stay warmer also. And bananas are water hogs. I have bananas in my backyard, and I never make it out there to water them. Now, this time of year, they're loving it because they get rained on almost every day. The rest of the year, I can't make it out there to water them enough, and I have very, very sandy spring hill soil. So they don't grow really, really great. If you ever see them growing in a roadside ditch, the important word there is ditch. If it's wet, they love it. They don't grow in standing water, then they're not going to grow in a pond or in the middle of Mays Prairie or anything. But where it's really, really reliably wet and warm, and if you fertilize them lightly but on a very regular basis, they'll grow like weeds. If you neglect any one of those things, like me with the watering, they're not going to do as well.
Well, it sounds like I just need to pull those because I'm never going to water them enough. And they just keep, and they are kind of tucked on the back side of my house between a screened-in porch, and really close to the house. And I have, on occasion, covered them, but, the one time I didn't, they got knocked back. And I'm not going to water them enough. So it sounds like and I have sandy soils, like you mentioned, so it may just not be the right fit.
Same here. Mine, and all it takes is one really cold night, and mine just get knocked back really bad every winter. And Austin joins us. Austin is one of our regular viewers from up there in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Austin.
So Austin probably does not grow bananas up there. Unless he has a greenhouse or grows them indoors. You could grow them in a large container. And been raining up there for the last couple days. It's been sunny and beautiful here finally. but regular rain. I know we got a lot of thunder yesterday. I don't think it ever rained though. Kind of snuck right around us.
We've got that tropical depression though coming, so everybody in Florida be paying attention to that.
Yes, we do. So you definitely want to watch that. And even for a lot of our county residents here in Hernando County, if it just kind of skirts by, gets a little breezy, not a whole lot of damage, if we get another foot of rain, that's going to be a problem for some people if they live on water or near a river or low-lying area. I live in Spring Hill. I can get 12 inches of rain in 12 hours, and it kind of piles up in my front yard because I have a bit of a swale. I'm on a corner also. But I tell you what, after it stops raining, 15 minutes later, poof, it's all gone. Right through that sand.
Right. I'm high and dry as well. But there are places on my commute on the way into work where there's a low spot in the road, and it's almost unsafe to drive in after a decent rain like that.
Yes, you always want to be careful. And what's the saying? Don't drive through standing water. Don't drive through moving water. Just because the guy in front of you drove through the 2-foot deep puddle in the middle of the intersection, don't you do it also just because others do it? And usually what happens is they get stuck. You really don't want that. So be careful out there. Here, let me go ahead and start showing. For anybody who would like to get in touch with me if you have any other questions, there's my email. And if you'd like to contact the office, there's our phone number, 352-754-4433. And if you call, you will most likely get Teresa. And Teresa's here today. She's on here with us also, but she's got her microphone muted and her camera off. So we'll get her on here one of these days. We're going to get her camera on and get her answering a few of these questions, because a lot of people who call our office or bring things in, she's the one who helps them out and answers their questions.
But she knows a little bit of everything, having to field those phone calls.
Well, she passes the hard plant and insect and pesticide questions to me. You know, we get questions on everything here, and you guys probably do also.
We do. I think we're one of the most easily accessible FWC facilities. And I think when people are looking on the internet, we come up a lot because folks will call us with questions about alligators, gopher tortoises. There's a snake in my backyard, like just any number of things like that. And if we can help folks, if we know the answers, we will. But sometimes we have to forward it to our regional wildlife assistance biologists, that's their primary purpose, is to kind of help folks with that.
Yeah, there's times when people ask us questions, but if I don't know the answer to it, I do know the appropriate researcher or extension expert up in Gainesville. And like I said, with mushrooms, I would pass them on to Dr. Smith. So we do have those kind of people to back us up. I know that our local Hernando County forester, which, do you know that we have a new forester?
I did not.
We do. And I'm going to have her on, and she said that there's a new forester in Citrus County, and have him on also. I have no idea who that is. And, you know, we need to have you back on that day also. You know, I can have 10 people on here, I think, all at once. That would get crowded, but I can have, you know, a few, and we can kind of go through who can answer what questions. So when people have questions, that way they can go to the appropriate person first. Because I do pass on gopher tortoise questions, wildlife questions, things like that to you guys. We get the mole and gopher questions. We get the palm tree questions because forestry doesn't like palm trees. I send them the pine tree questions because they know more about what's happening with bark beetles at the moment. So yeah, no, I'm going to do that one Thursday morning really soon, and we'll have all the experts on here. I'll get a few other people on here too, and we'll go through who answers what kind of questions so people will know where to send them to first. Although don't worry if you send them to the wrong person, we'll just shuffle you around till you get to the right person.
sounds wonderful. I would love to get to know those folks too.
Yeah, I don't send too many questions to you guys. I need to send more. I'll send all the animal ones to
Oh, no.
you now. So.
Okay, fair enough. We can do it.
But you guys always send the palm tree ones to me, so it's fair, I guess.
Well, and I would love to. I guess if we ever have any real serious questions about mushrooms, it's like you said, my dog ate one or something where someone needs to know the identity of their mushroom. Can I email Dr. Smith as well, or should I email you?
Send it to me, and I'll forward
Okay.
it to him. I tell you what, he would be a great guest to have on here. So I'm going to get a hold of him, and that will be another Thursday. Because
There you go.
he's the mushroom expert. I'll let him explain Florida mushrooms to everybody and why it may be safe for people up north, let's say Michigan or Minnesota, to go out in the woods and pick chanterelles and bring them home and eat them. And you really don't want to do that here in Florida. So, yeah, I'll definitely get a hold of him and get him on here. For any of you who don't follow us on Facebook yet, shame on you. You need to go and find our Facebook page. The short name is Hernando EXT. And all of our events and classes that I'm teaching and everybody else here is teaching are all on there under the events. And for anybody here in Hernando County that has not yet been to our Master Gardener Nursery, once again, shame on you. It's located over on Oliver Street. That's the little street, if you know where the Hernando County Fairgrounds are. It's the little street that goes alongside of it and curves behind it. It's the same road that Animal Control is on. So Animal Control is at the end of Oliver Street. We're halfway down on the left. And we have Master Gardeners there Wednesday morning and Saturday morning from about 8:30 in the morning until 11. During the winter, that's noon, but right now it's still really hot, so they pack it up at 11. And they have a huge variety of Florida-friendly plants there for sale, a fantastic selection of Florida native plants for sale. And if you have questions, you don't know what's going on with your plant, you have a bug, you don't know what it is, if you take it there, they're more than happy to try to identify it and answer your question for you also. So that's another great resource. So, gosh, I guess I have the next couple classes kind of figured out here. I need to start contacting people to see who can be on. I mentioned Teresa. Yes, Teresa does know her bees. Teresa is the honeybee whisperer. So if you ever get any questions up there about honeybees, just forward them back here to Teresa. Now she's going to be mad at me for saying that.
We all got our part.
Carol's another one of our really regular viewers or listeners, and she lives in Southwest St. Pete. She's had rain the past 2 days in the late afternoon, lots of thunder and lightning. Yeah, you need to be careful out there. But it's funny because we have people from all these different parts of Florida. So if what Carol can grow in her yard is different from what you and I can grow here in Hernando County, and definitely different than what Buddy can grow up there in the Panhandle. So Florida's kind of amazing. It's not all Miami and coconut palms and fruit trees. So and Genevieve has our final question for the day here, because it's getting to be about that time. She has 2 patches of banana trees, and the ones near a downspout next to the house grow very well. The ones further away do not grow nearly as well. That gives me a great idea. I need to take a hard look at where my bananas are growing and where my downspouts are located and work that together. And maybe if I run the downspout water into a rain barrel and put the bananas near a rain barrel, I could just set that on trickle on a very, very regular basis. I think I have a new project here. I think I'm going to try that because mine just are not doing that great where they are. They're not under irrigation. They get rained on, but yeah, I'm gonna thank you, Genevieve. That's a great idea. You just gave me a great suggestion here, and I'll try that and take pictures, and we'll see how that one works. And I'll have to share that one with Lily also, because Lily does have her rain barrel classes on a regular basis. So maybe between downspout, lots of rain, save it in a rain barrel, put it on the bananas every single day. Maybe that would work. That'd do it.
And maybe one day he'd have bananas, right?
Maybe one day,
One
I've tried
day.
growing them on and off, and I've never gotten bananas. And some people get them every single year. Yeah, we have more and more bananas. And one last question, because it's really important with what I just said. Linda asked, would the pollutants from the roof affect the fruit? Technically, you don't want to use water that you've collected in a rain barrel from the roof on, let's say, low-growing vegetables or fruits, things like that grow small, blueberries, blackberries, lettuce, because your roof is not clean, birds poop on it, you get the possibly chemicals up there, there's a lot of different contaminants. For something like bananas, if you use that water and put it through drip irrigation to drip just the roots and water it, that should be safe, because there's no way the watering it down here at ground level would ever come in contact with the fruit, which is going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 feet up or higher. So it's a really, really good point. Good question. In this situation, it's safe, but you wouldn't want to do that if you're growing, let's say, lettuce or spinach. That is a big food safety no-no right there, using rain barrel roof water for watering vegetables. So, Hannah, thank you so much for coming on here. Like I said, you're drafted to be back on here once again. I'm going to get you in here with a couple of foresters and a few other people, and we'll all talk about who do you take your question to. And the answer to that isn't Dr. Bill all the time. So don't tell
Nope.
people that.
I won't. But yeah, thanks so much for having us. I learned so much, and I am really excited to be back.
Well, you can always just tune in and watch. And if you want, or if I catch you watching, I'll just email you the link real quick, and you can pop on. This is so simple for me to send a link. You pop on, and boom, now you're a guest. People come and go, and I got 15 minutes. I can answer that question. We need to do a lot more of that, because that's what keeps it fun.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
We don't want this to be a boring lecture here or anything. No, we don't want that.
No, it didn't feel like that. This is obviously the first one I participated in, so I didn't quite know what to expect. But this is really nice. Just having a chat.
Everybody's afraid the first time, but they find out really quickly, hey, this is pretty easy and this is pretty fun. So it's a great platform. I need to make use of it a lot more for putting online and doing regular classes in the evening. You can share a PowerPoint on here very easily. You can screen share, so it's a lot of fun. And Linda says thank you. We always get lots and lots of thank yous. So obviously this is being a benefit to the community. So Hannah, hang on here for just a second and let me tell everybody else, thank you so much. Be sure to tune in next Thursday morning at 10. I'll be back here. I'm not exactly sure who's going to be here with me. I'm sure Lily will be back. And I'll try to find other people to come on. So be sure to tune in next Thursday, and we will see you then. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.